This is absolutely Essendon, the Bombers YouTube fan channel that combines heartbreak with gallows humour in equal measure. This week, we took on the Swans at the SCG, and good news, we lost by less. So while the contenders surge towards the finals, we're clunking along like a busted wheelie bin in a headwind. Are you ready, DT? Let's do it! Well, we're at round 21, and boy, the finish line can't come quick enough. It wasn't the most inspiring game on Saturday afternoon against the Swans up in the SCG. It wasn't really great conditions. It was kind of like playing on the moon. No atmosphere. But
Right.
the funny thing was that for all of Swan's dominance, and boy, they dominated those stats. We don't need to repeat them. We're sure you know them, but we might repeat a couple.
Yeah,
For all of that, the last quarter, somehow, we had a little bit of a sniff, a little bit of something.
we did. And I must say I haven't really dwelled for too long on this game, but just before we came on air, we had a look at some of those stats, and it was pretty stunning, the differences between the two teams, given that the margin was only 14 points in the end. I was just, this one gets me 136 marks to 42.
Oh,
I mean, 136 marks in any conditions is good, but
yeah,
in pretty wet, slippery conditions, that was amazing from the Swans. So
yeah.
they really should have smashed us, but
They should
but
have.
they did. Yeah. So that's probably, I don't know. There's a scientific conundrum. I'm not sure what the word is for that, but when everything points to a certain outcome and you get the complete opposite, what
So,
is that? Yeah.
yes, what is it? There's someone in our community will know. I'm sure there is
Yep.
a theory around that. But again, and they had more space. They seem to have so many uncontested possessions. Every one of our possessions seemed to be under pressure, contested, whatever you want to call it. Usual, that's standard operating procedure for us. Um, but somehow we just scraped our way in. I mean, the second quarter didn't even kick a goal, but in that last quarter,
No.
like we were kind of there. I mean, the Blackiston 50, whether it was a real
Yep.
50 or not, or a little soft, whatever, it kind of, him kicking his first goal, gave us just a little something.
Yeah. Well, there's a conspiracy theory doing the rounds that
Oh,
in
is there?
in that last quarter
Hit me
when the
with it.
Bo-
Hit
when
me.
the when the Bombers were threatening, and Zach Merritt, who'd been pretty quiet for most of the game, suddenly came alive in that last quarter, in the first, say, 10, 15 minutes of that last quarter.
Mm.
Essendon were on a roll, and then suddenly he was shifted into the forward line and really didn't have much more impact on the game. And the popular thinking is that that was the decision by the coaches to make sure we didn't win the game, because why win a game when right now the season's completely gone, and frankly, the higher the draft pick, the better. And so that is the thinking, that maybe the Bombers at the end of the day just put the brakes on a little. Yeah, maybe that's a bit arrogant when the other side's had 2,500,000 million more possessions, but we did put the brakes on, and in the end, Sydney got through with a little bit of a shaky 14-point loss. But look,
Are
let's
you
just let.
buying that? Are you buying it?
Well, I do believe the Earth is flat.
Yeah, I was about to say, is there, if we drew a Venn diagram in terms of overlap between people that think the Earth is flat and there's an ice wall past Antarctica, and the Bombers through that game in the last quarter, maybe there's a lot
Yeah,
of overlap.
yeah.
I'm
No,
not,
I think
I'm
the
not
Earth flat theory's probably got a little more legs than Essendon throwing a game. I mean, Essendon doesn't need to throw anything at the moment.
I
Let's
wouldn't
be
have thought
honest.
so. Look, when Merritt kicked that goal, I mean, sorry, just missed that goal. I don't know, what
Uh,
was he? Yes, yeah, God, yeah, because I mean, they cut to Brad Scott in the box, and that reaction, if he was acting, please get that man an Oscar.
No, I mean, come
Please.
on. We all know Brad Scott's an incredible actor. He's the De Niro of his time. You've seen his post-game press conferences.
Well,
He somehow manages to turn that into a Shakespearean drama every
yeah,
time.
well, yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, anyway, a nice theory. And
Yep, it is a nice theory. But what did you think of the game? I mean, we've got a few things we want to talk about today, but the game in general. I mean, honestly, I don't know about you, but I can't really remember much of it.
look, I just remember the domination of the usual suspects, and
Yeah,
that, and okay, you mentioned Merritt. I felt like he didn't get much of the ball because he was being tagged. Was it by Jordan? And so they made that decision. But again, the likes of Blakey running free, McInerney, Heaney,
yeah,
was it Warner, all just lots of space carving through the middle.
but not Papley.
Yes.
No, the
Well, yes,
the
and
human
and
the human pap smear
yes.
uh, was largely held in that game by
He was, and I was
young
disappointed.
Jaden Ewan.
Yeah, I knew I was disappointed for him because I think it was a Hobbs free kick on Papley that got Papley onto the
Yep.
scoreboard, and I was a bit annoyed for all concerned that
Yeah, yeah.
that happened because lose the game, don't care, but it would have been nice to keep Papley to 0 goals.
Well, look, let's just quickly talk about Jaden Ewan's debut. I mean, he had 5 possessions, but he did his job, and I think he did his job with aplomb. He kept his opponent quiet. That's what he was sent out there to do.
Yeah,
And I think, all credit to him. It was a really, really good debut. And he showed a bit of mongrel too, which is what I really
yeah,
liked.
I would agree.
He gave that little Papley a nice mouthing when he stood over him on the boundary line for a first gamer. That's what I love. And I will say this much, out of this wreck of a season, we're starting to find a few players that have got a bit of nasty about them. And
Mm.
that's guys like Archie Roberts and Angus Clark and now Jaden Ewan all showing from time to time just a bit of that mongrel and yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, I was shocked to hear because it feels like Archie Roberts now has been around like forever. Um,
Yeah.
that he still hasn't turned 20. And yes, he's one that displays that. I mean, we all saw sort of what he did, sort of, weaving through that congested area of players, just having that composure
Yeah. Yeah.
beyond his years, totally beyond his years. Like he genuinely excites me. So yes, out of
Yeah.
this wreckage, at least there's things like that. And, plays with a bit of anger, as you say,
Yeah.
plays with a bit of mongrel, like Durham.
He
They're the
does. And,
things,
and
they're
I
the
think
things you build on.
he won't, most probably won't win the Rising Star. He's been nominated, but he's got to be in the top 3 or 4 for sure. I think he's had an incredible season when all around him has been falling apart. So
Yeah.
for a young kid to really emerge out of the wreckage of this season, that's been one of the real positives, hasn't it? And I think we should acknowledge Sam Durham's game, if nothing else. His effort was just incredible. His determination to be a part of the game and to get himself at the bottom of every pack was
Yeah.
amazing. And he was by far and away our best player. So despite the mess of a year that we're having, there has been some pretty positive signs, and I'm looking forward to seeing where a lot of these kids will be in 12 months' time, when they've had a proper preseason or another preseason, they've had maybe another 10 or 15 games. I think if out of these 14 kids, we can uncover half a dozen who turn out to be 200 game players, it's been an incredibly important year for us, although we won't see the benefits of it for a few years.
That would be a huge result, a huge
Yeah.
result. But the other thing that makes, again, the fact that we were so close in the last quarter, I think there was currently at half time, the number of Essendon players, I think with only 5 or 6 disposals, there was
Yeah.
quite a few, quite a
Yeah, I
few,
think we had
both
11
young and
players.
experienced alike.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. There was 11 players for the Bombers who had 6 kicks or less for the game. So,
Yeah, wow.
yeah, I mean, we weren't getting our hands on the ball, but there was no questioning the effort in that game, and I think Brad Scott was very positive about that at the end of the game afterwards in his press conference, made comments as such. So, look, that was the last thing I want to say about this game was, I mean, honestly. the kids are doing their best. They're going to be hot and cold whilst they're sort of working their way into their career. But the real disappointment for me again was some of the senior players like Peter Wright.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, Hobbs, I think we can call a senior player
Oh,
now. He's
I
been in
don't
the
know. I don't think you
3 or 4
can, but
years. Three or
yeah.
4 years, come on. Tim Watson was, amazing after 3 or 4 years in the competition.
Well, let's just go to a freak of the game and compare them
All
against
right,
that.
all
But,
right. I can
that's
name
fair.
more. I can name more. Perkins, yeah, in and out,
Yeah.
drifts in and out of the game, has no effort, no,
He's
no defensive
frustrating,
pressure.
like that beautiful,
Yeah,
tough mark
yeah.
that he took in that first
Guelphy,
half. Yeah.
Guelphy.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on? What happened to him? Look, he's never been a superstar, but he's not even applying the defensive pressure that he's, become probably most famous for.
Yeah.
And on it goes. So aggression. you
Yes.
know, did nothing. And we're paying this guy 700,000 plus a year, or maybe even more. So there's 5 players that have been in the system for a fair period of time and had zero impact on the game. Zero. So I think there's going to be some real questions being asked about those guys, those 5 in particular, at the end of this season. And I think we'll talk about that in a little bit about what's going to happen at the end of the year. Because I notice a lot of the other content creators are already into the draft and the end of season trade period because let's be honest, there's not much to talk about otherwise. So we
Yeah,
might have a
I
quick look at
get
that
that.
ourselves.
But my issue with that, as it always has been, and we're always going to sort of differ slightly in this view, is okay, yes, let's get excited about the new recruits, and there definitely new blood is required that's visible to anyone to see. However, you know, why were so many of our tackles being broken so easily and just shrugged off? And, our skills and missing targets, whereas Sydney was shrugging off tackles. So new recruits ain't going to fix.
Yeah. But look, don't forget, you're talking about a side that played in the grand final 20 games ago. Yeah, Sydney is not a poor side. There's a lot of experienced players. They're stronger, they're bigger. Yeah, kids are not gonna be able to play that level of
Yeah, but we're
physicality.
not, we're not just talking about the kids. We're talking all across
I
the
know.
board.
Look, I mean, but that to me is more a case of attitude, right? I think half the problem when you talk about attitude, it's players like Gresham and Wright and Perkins. They're just not. You can't rely on them. Durham I can rely on every week to
Yes,
turn up.
yes,
That is
yes.
attitude. Durham's not
Mhm.
as skillful a player as perhaps Archie Perkins is. Let's be honest. Perkins was taken in the top 10 of the national draft. Sam Durham was a mid-season selection, a
Mm.
mid-season draft pick. He was playing reserves football at Richmond. So, there's a clear difference in quality, but quality is only one part of what makes a great AFL footballer. And, if Perkins and Hobbs and Wright and these guys, Gresham, played with the same attitude as Sam Durham every week, and I'm not saying they don't try, but there's just
Yeah,
a subtle difference, right?
there
And
is.
they could be superstars. I mean, Peter Wright, what the hell's happened with his kicking? He's missing anything from 40 meters out now. It's just
Yeah.
whereas he was once reliable, now you can't rely on him hitting the side of a barn.
He's
So I
got the
think there's
yips, which would suggest
yeah,
you're right. It's a mental thing that's now just feels like it's
yeah,
through the club. Confidence is definitely
yeah.
down, and
I mean,
yeah,
go on.
well, yeah, because they know the importance of a kick and an opportunity when you get it, because they don't come along that often, which
Yeah,
just only builds the pressure and just makes it harder.
yeah. Yeah, and I think like a good point exactly when you're finding it difficult to have any impact in a game, you got to take your chances and get a little bit of a buzz going, which they did in the last quarter, to be fair, and most of the players lifted a little in that last quarter until Brad Scott said, "Hey, put
Right.
the handbrake on that."
He sent the
Uh,
word out. Did they put a
and
special
let's
board up?
let's be honest, the worst thing that we could have done is win that game. Let's just be honest about that. So I think we get pick 4. We're in place to pick 4, but there's going to be father and son selections and NGA selections. So our pick 4 probably ends up being like pick 9 or something.
Yeah.
But it still will give us access to a high quality talent. And Melbourne, I think, is sitting a couple of spots above us. So it's probably 4 and 6 at the moment, the draft pick for us. And we've got a couple of second rounders. So I
Mm.
think with that in mind, shall we move on? Because I think we've got to start seriously thinking about that And we will do a more deep dive into the draft and the trade period when the season's finished and we know more about what's going on. But I think it's probably worth asking the questions, who on this list today
Yeah.
is going to be playing at Essendon next year?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, yeah, it'd probably be good to start with maybe who we feel the certainties are, and you know, and then I think go down from there in terms of
Certain to
then
be gone, you
certain to be
mean?
gone, and
Yeah,
then in
yeah,
the mix, and then potential good money ball moves
yeah.
after that, I think. And the first one, well, I mean, let's just segue it in with mentioning that Grundy, a ruckman, had 39 disposals against us. Quite incredible, quite
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
So
I mean, has a ruckman ever had
I,
40
I,
possessions in a
I
game?
haven't had time to sort of look it up, but
Yeah.
possibly they may have. I don't know. Was Steins, was he a gatherer of disposals?
Probably. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but I think he was their highest clearance gatherer for the game.
Yeah.
So getting the ball out of those stoppages. So what does that mean? It means that Goldstein's at the end of the road for sure, and I can't imagine a world in which he will be offered another contract, another extension, other than the fact that Brad Scott is his greatest fan. So, who knows? But I think it's the end of the road. I think Goldie must know that, although he has come out and said he'd like to play on, but nah, you're fooling yourself, buddy.
So,
That was,
so, yeah, but possibly. Okay, so then that brings up the topic of Visentini. So, would that have been a positive for Visentini's development to go up against someone like Grundy and get absolutely
yeah,
towed?
yep. I reckon it would have been. I think you can only learn when you're playing against the best players in the competition. And Visentini's played two games. One was against Jackson,
Yep.
Luke Jackson, who's a fantastic ruckman, young ruckman, and the other was Briggs, I think, from Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Is it Briggs or Griggs? Can't remember. Briggs,
I think Briggs.
the
Yeah.
big lad who basically towed him.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Vigo would have learnt a lot from those experiences. And then if you had played against, Grundy, what's the worst thing that could have happened? Grundy would have got like a whole lot of possessions. Well, surprise, surprise, he got those anyway. So I think we're wasting valuable, learnings by not playing these young kids whilst we have the excuse to play them. There's just no reason for Grundy to play another game this season. If it means getting a bit more into Visentini, then by all means, let's do it. I don't particularly care, and I don't think anyone cares if we lose games by 50, 60 points because of it.
Yeah, no, you're probably right, but don't use the dirty word learnings. That triggers a large part of our community. Okay, so if Goldstein is on the definite list, who else have you got that you think is
Well,
definite?
look, I think in terms of definite departures, I think there's three other players that there's just hang on. But I will underline this by saying that one of these guys has been reinvented in the VFL, and that's Alwyn Davey Jr., who's been playing as a sort of halfback flanker in the VFL and doing actually quite well, as opposed to sort of being that small pressure forward, which he's never been able to embrace that role.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think he will go. But having said that, you never know. He is actually showing a little bit in the reserves or the VFL side. I
Yeah.
think Menzies gone. Jai Menzies, who, if you remember earlier in this season, had that spectacular game against Melbourne. I think
Four
it was in the
goals.
gather round, was it? Kicked four goals and was one of the best on ground and basically not seen since. And then the
Mm.
last one I'd say is Dylan Shield, who, to be fair, I think has played pretty well in the few weeks he's been back in the side. But yeah, come on, let's be honest. There's no future with Dylan Shield, so I think it's time to say goodbye. He might get picked up by someone for 1 year, like a bit
Yeah.
like Stringer going off to GWS.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think those four players
I
definitely
would agree with that.
are gone in my mind. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. We need to probably let go around 8 players as a minimum. When you think we took 4 players in the mid-season draft and we've got 4 early draft picks. So you're going to have to make space for 8 players potentially.
Yeah.
So we've got a few to cut. So we've just mentioned 4, but there's at least 4 more who I think are going to have to be chopped if we're to make room for, the returning injured players that are on the long-term injury list. So guys like Draper and Hayes and these guys, they're on the long-term injury list, but as soon as they're ready, they'll come back onto the full list. So we have to make room for them, and plus the 4 early round draft picks that we've got. So I think out of those, we said 4 definites. I think there's 4 possibles. 2 of those, I suspect, will be the mid-season drafts, and I'm going to say Liam McMahon and Oscar Smart won't make the cut.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of people who are fans of Liam McMahon, but I just don't see it myself. Honestly, I think he's he's been in the system for 4 years, or maybe 4 or 5 years in the AFL system with Collingwood. He was drafted by Collingwood and then spent a bit of time with Carlton's VFL side. He just doesn't look the finished product, and at his age, he really needs to be that. I would be taking Archer May easily in preference to Liam McMahon. Now, Archer May
Really?
has an 18-month contract, so he's at no risk. He will be playing next season. But I think with the likely return of some of these guys like Tom Edwards, Langford, so on and so forth, there's probably just not going to be room for Liam McMahon. He might come
Potentially
back.
a bit harsh, DT. Potentially a bit
Maybe,
harsh.
maybe. I think Oscar Smart's shown a couple of flashes, but generally, I don't think he looks
Probably
the goods.
agree.
But
I agree on that
it's so
one.
early to say. But I mean, here's the thing: someone's got to go. So, and then you're looking at some of these debutants that have come in this year. I think there might be questions about Luaman Lual.
Mhm.
I think he's shown intent, but I'm not sure he's got the skill set,
Yeah,
uh,
I,
the
I
necessary
I would
skills.
agree. I would agree.
And then there's 4 guys. I'm just going to throw these names at you, and I'd like your thoughts. That I think 2 of them have to be traded, and that's actually there's 5.
Okay.
Status, Hobbs, Perkins, Jones, and Wright. I think out of those 5, we should be looking at trading 2 of those, or moving 2 of them on.
I think
And
that's fair.
you might
That's
get
fair.
a late second round pick for one of them, maybe a third round pick. You're not going to get much though, right?
No, probably not. I mean, when you look though, Perkins and Hobbs. I mean, Perkins, another club might say, you know what, we can improve that attitude. They might. They might. They may. They might say,
Yeah.
you know, the raw ability is there. If we can tap into that attitude and and turn that around, might be something there.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we've got to take that chance, right? You've got to take that
yeah,
chance that, I mean, we should never have let go of Massimo, but we did, and
yeah.
it didn't work. Some are arguing that letting go of Patrick Voss was a mistake.
Mm,
I don't think we're going to risk too much in letting Ben Hobbs and Archie Perkins go. I think Sarters probably has a little more upside, but yeah, he's constantly injured, so who knows? Jones,
yeah.
I think he's had plenty of opportunity to show his wares, and I don't think he's an AFL player. And Peter Wright, I just think Peter Wright long term is
Yeah.
a player. I think a Melbourne would do well getting a guy like Peter Wright.
Now
Who can
we didn't he
30,
didn't
40
cost us
goals.
much, right? He didn't cost
Nothing.
us much.
I think he was a 4th round draft pick to Gold Coast or something like that. But
Right, okay.
no,
Okay.
we've had him on the books for 4 years, I think, and he's been very serviceable. But going forward, particularly with Caddy in the side, and I think the opportunity perhaps to draft another key forward this year. We've got in the background Tom Edwards, Archer May, Langford to come back. So there's a bit of height that's still coming
Yeah,
back into the
that's
team.
true.
I'm not sure Peter Wright, as other than perhaps being a backup ruckman who can play forward, I'm not sure he's a long-term play. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm sure
I,
people will have their own opinions on that.
I agree, and please share your opinions with us on what we're saying. But I agree with Peter Wright. I think long term there isn't a place there. I probably would rate Hobbs above Sartis, but I always have, only because in his first year Hobbs showed something, and then it's just been
Yeah.
downhill since. Whereas with Sartis, we haven't quite seen that, in my opinion. So that's the only difference from my point of view.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I agree. I think Sartis has, to be fair, I just don't think Sartis has ever been given a decent run. And he got back into the team a few weeks ago, and then did his hammy or quad or whatever it was. So he was in and out straight away. And I think he would have been a fixture in the side for the remaining 4 or 5 matches of the season. We'll never know
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I just feel that he's got a little bit more in his arsenal than Hobbsy. Hobbsy to me is just as one-dimensional a player as I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He's good at being in and under the pack,
Yeah.
but he's got really no other weapon.
Yeah.
He was, I think, early in his run, yeah, doing well. He was getting his 15 to 20 possessions, but he just doesn't impact the game at all.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I've seen enough. I'd be interested to know what others think.
Yes,
Um,
please share, and like
yeah.
and subscribe at the same time. Help support the channel.
Would be
We
nice.
do
Yeah, it would be
appreciate
nice.
it.
And then
Yep.
you've got really sort of the conundrum with Archie Perkins, because I think the hard thing about Archie is you can see a footballer there, but how long do you persist with the guy like that? How long do you give up a spot in the team for Archie Perkins when we could go out and draft a player this year who could immediately replace him? And the risk is you'll never know if you give Archie that spot and you don't try someone else. So yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
Perkins is the one they're most nervous about letting go of, because if he was to go to Geelong or Collingwood or somewhere,
Yeah.
he'll turn into a superstar.
Yeah. Well, I
Uh,
mean, because the key
yeah.
issue is that he goes missing, and if under someone else's regime, where he's given very clear instructions about expectations,
Yeah.
that could just change overnight.
It could. I mean, you just got to think, how would a guy like Archie Perkins respond to Craig McRae's coaching style?
Mm,
Where Craig McRae seems to be able to give these guys at Collingwood that sense of freedom.
Yeah.
Play your
Yeah.
own game. There's a team rule, obviously. They play to a particular game plan, but I
Yeah.
think within the context of that, he lets his guys play up to their best abilities. What are they good at? What role can they perform? And he lets them do it. I think Brad Scott sort of strangles a lot of the freedom out of these kids. I don't know,
I
because
don't know.
they just seem to go backwards.
Yeah.
And, when they started, they all looked promising, but 2 or 3, 4 years into their career, they look like they're not going to make it. So
Yeah.
is
I
it the
don't know.
coaching?
Don't know
Who
what it
knows?
is. Now we might be losing the satellite in 7 minutes,
Yeah.
I've been told. So
Okay. Well,
what
fair
else
enough.
have you got to who else are you throwing into the mix? Where can we improve?
Look, I just think that this is a case of it's now or never for the Bombers, right? We've got a really good draft hand this year, and we've got to be bold. We've got to be creative. Maybe turn those 2 second-round picks into another first-round pick. Trade away some of these guys to get the currency, the trade currency, to then match any late bids for the two NGA guys, Swade and Al Achkar. This could be a real defining draft for us, and I think we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
Matt Rosa, man, is he under the pump to deliver, because he's got to make up for the mess that was created from the last 15 years of, just poor judgment, poor player selection, poor team balance. But I do think that, despite moments where we've been pretty harsh on the team this year, I do think we are heading in the right direction. And I think we've seen enough of the young kids to say there's certainly a few of those kids that can become really good AFL footballers, but we need to keep building. I think we're still 2 drafts away from being anywhere near the finished product. By the time we feel we've got a team that can take us to the promised land, Zach Merritt's going to be 31, 32 years old.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be done, but I'm really interested to see how some of these kids will go with another preseason under their belt and bringing in a few elite young talents through the draft.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, before we even think about the promised land, we just want to get to a point where we're consistent, competitive,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just, finishing 11th. Well, I think we're all tired of that.
Oh, we won't be finishing 11th. Don't
No,
worry about
well,
that.
no, we've managed to avoid that this year, so
Yeah.
that's a win, I suppose. But
So it's the cats down at the cattery this week.
oh,
There's got to be a mercy clause on this one, surely.
well, they're hungry for percentage, and they've
Yeah.
got Cameron chasing the Coleman medal. So, not that they needed any
Well,
incentive
100
against
goals. He's
us.
chasing 100 goals.
Yes, well, yeah, yes,
I think he's got the Coleman pretty much
Oh,
wrapped
has
up, but
he? Has he?
pretty much. I think he's
Yeah.
20 goals ahead now because he's had, I think, 17 goals in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
He's
he could very
probably
well.
he's probably penciled in 9 or 10 against us, I would have thought.
I think he could be penciling in the 25 he needs for
Just
the
just to get
ton.
the job done.
Why
Yeah,
not? Break the all-time goal kicking record, which is 18 goals in a game. I think Jason Dunstall got to 17 once,
he did.
but
He did.
I
He did.
think I think Jezza might be going pretty close this week. But those Geelong players, you've got to be a bit careful because they're going to start getting a bit cocky and signaling him out. Singling him out.
Yes.
Uh, and that's the opportunity, not maybe for us, but for other sides to take advantage of that. They've still got
Yeah.
to be a team. They've still got to play as a team. But yeah, I would expect Jeremy Cameron will have a field day,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. Shall we make the trek down the highway or just watch that from the comfort of home? That's a long drive home after a 105-point loss.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm going to go. I mean, I normally, Cardinia Park starts with a K, so does KO. So I think I might go the KO option on that one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but good luck to the lads. That's going to be like when they sent the boys over the top at the Battle of the Somme.
Yeah, I was going to say
Not
a
too
war
not
a
too
war
many are coming
reference
back.
against the odds is what's required there because it's very much that. Um,
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely. Anyway,
yeah,
we'll see. But
yeah.
otherwise, yeah, that's about it for me this week. It's been a
Yep.
pretty low key episode, but I don't think anyone's counting.
No, no, I don't think so. We're just limping towards the end of the season,
When
unfortunately.
does our studio come back online?
I think, yeah, well, after the end of our season, that's for sure. I think it's mid-September. Hey, we might do a grand final special from there. I know it's a bit of a pain in the backside, but anyway,
You'll see, hey?
yes.
Yeah. We'll do it
So
live from Ibiza
in
on
the
our off-season trip.
or Qatar, go check on Riddles if he goes back over there, working on that quad.
Getting his hamstring transplant.
Oh God, yeah.
Can't they put carbon fiber in there instead or something like that?
There's got to be
We can
something.
rebuild him.
Surely, surely. Well, there you go. That was the episode. I felt like we are repeating a lot of things, but
Sure
in
are.
fact, someone said to me, they said, you can probably get AI to do your episodes next year. Just clone our faces, our voices, and we just prompt with whether we won or lost, and gets done.
Who's to say this isn't the AI outcome?
Anyway, all right, enough of that mucking around. Thanks again for watching. Like, subscribe, please comment, and we'll be back for next week's review of the Cats game. Have mercy, Cats, or who
Tune
knows?
in for that one. Tune
It
in.
could be a miracle. You
Oh,
never
you know
know.
what? I will do the show naked if we win that game.
Oh,
Last comment because we are literally running out of seconds here. We are $21 with the
oh,
bookies
really?
in a two-horse race.
Wow,
They're
that's
$1.01.
mate. I might put $5 on it for charity. But yeah, okay. Well, there you heard it. I hope they show this to the whole Bombers squad. DT will do the show naked if you manage to get up over the Cats. What an incentive!
You want a little preview while we're
We
here?
don't need a trailer. We don't need a sneak peek. No. we,
All right.
we'll get banned by YouTube. All right, that is all.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone.
See ya. Bye for
Bye for
now.
now. Bye.